As you know, the original Holy Trinity, the one from 2010 to 2020, we'll call it that decade, was the McLaren P1, the Porsche 918. Ooh, dude, did you smell it? And
dude, that's gonna itch when it dries. That was super wet, guys, like really wet.
And I'll just keep moving on. And of course, the LaFerrari, which is just behind me. Now, while we wait for the air to clear, there he is. We need to go ahead and help determine what the new Holy Trinity is going to be. And I think that we're far enough into this decade and there's enough cars in the pipeline where we can probably figure that out. We have an idea.
So this whole video is speculation, and I want you guys to comment what you think the next Holy Trinity is going to be, because none of us know. Each decade has a Holy Trinity that the people kind of assign to it. So obviously this was the most well-known, like 918 P1 LaFerrari are legendary. The reason those cars were the Holy Trinity is because they all came out around the same time. They were all the same price, relatively, all the same performance, relatively, and they were the first hypercars that were hybrids. Yes. So there are categories that make the cars into a Holy Trinity. They have to share similarities. So
sure.
What do you think? We're going to jump right into it. Like, what do you think the next Holy Trinity might be?
Well, getting back to the original Holy Trinity, right? Like they did share a lot in common. Price point, rarity, although the 918 had significantly higher production numbers.
It's actually the LaFerrari. They made 399 Spiders, I believe, don't quote me, and 499 Coupes. So almost 900. There's 900 of these. Where the P1, they only made 375. So there's a third of P1s to the other two, which is crazy.
So clearly it is okay to have different production numbers. They all are not all-wheel drive. Only the 918 that's the only all-wheel drive model. Correct. And in my opinion, by far gets the best traction as a result. They are all automatic with a simulated manual gear, as BMW calls it. PDK, of course, in the Porsche. It's the best transmission ever built, in my opinion. I agree. But one thing that they all do have in common is heritage. So I think that's a big point where you and I kind of lightly discussed this, but we wanted to save the debate. Yeah. For this vlog is all of the vehicles from the Holy Trinity from 2010 to 20 had heritage, right? McLaren, huge history. Ferrari, even longer and storied history. And then I keep forgetting a car. Porsche, I mean, we're talking the longest history.
He owns all of them and doesn't know what they are.
It's a day. The fart has my brain a little bit cloudy right now.
Yeah.
There will be more of those coming.
Aim them that way.
so lots of history from all three, like 30 plus years of history. Lots of racing.
Lots of racing heritage.
F1.
Yeah.
What a lot of people don't know is that there was actually prior Holy Trinities to this model. Tommy, you were the one educating me on this.
Yes.
Do you know what it was, like the 2000 to 2010?
So back early 2000s, it was Carrera GT, Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren, and the Ferrari Enzo. And those three were like the three grails of when I was really young, like that early 2000s era.
90s Holy Trinity. What was the 90s Holy Trinity?
Late 90s, it was the McLaren F1,
Yep.
the Mercedes CLK GTR, and then the Porsche 911 GT1, which are all insane cars. The value has exploded long term.
Especially on the F1, which I will own at one point in time.
Dude, that car's...
It's going to happen.
It'll happen.
And then I will daily it.
Coming to a vlog near you.
Yes.
Can you imagine you and your two kids in an F1? That's like end all be all.
Yeah.
I say that a lot, but that actually is.
Super hard to get out of, but well worth it.
And then me right in Steve's lap.
Yeah.
And then 80s, there's previous Holy Trinities. Each decade has one that the car community kind of assigns, in my opinion. This is all speculation. This is just what we think it might be.
McLaren wasn't really mass producing or building cars in the 90s, so why do you think that? It did have a history with F1 racing and everything, right? But how does that one have history when they hadn't really built mainstreamer cars prior to that? How do you think that one made it into the mix?
No, the F1, I mean, it was so many firsts, that car. Like it was untouchable and still is in a lot of ways if you're talking about driving experience.
Which I'm kind of surprised the Veyron wouldn't have made it in that list of the 2000 to 2010.
It came out like in a weird...
It's so late, right?
Yeah,
I get you. That could have been part of the 2010 to 20, but it didn't really match up with the hybrid drive. It was actually destroyed
so that's
them.
why there are categories. Like these are all hybrids. So you have to find pockets that make that, yes.
Kind of. All right, so that provides a little bit of a infrastructure for what we think is going to be the 2020 to 30. We've had a little discussion, but him and I got a little bit heated at the table. It was fun heated, of course.
Steve punched me.
Yeah, I punched him
in the face
and farted in his face.
In my mouth. I had pink eye actually.
Yes, it was a wet one. So we unanimously agreed on, I think, two vehicles we were pretty stern on. Yeah. both of which I have on order. Now the first one, I can't imagine how this doesn't make the list. It is the most hyped one that almost every influencer that we've chatted with, and at this point we've had quite a few of those conversations, that would be the Koenigsegg Jesko. This is like Koenigsegg's flagship badass vehicle that they're only building 150 of. I was blessed enough to get an allocation for this vehicle. We've already spec'd it out. The Koenigsegg Jesko is powered by a V8 twin turbo engine that produces 1,600 horsepower, and that is with E85 gasoline. And then the second one that I think unanimously agreed on was the Bugatti Chiron, right? Like
that car is untouchable. It's seriously, it's an engineering masterpiece as well as the Jesko. Yep. It has broken records. Like that car will go down history as a great from our era. I don't know how that couldn't be in the Holy Trinity of this decade.
I am totally with you on the Chiron. It is a 1,500 horsepower machine, so when we're comparing that to the Koenigsegg, you're already seeing comparisons. They're just taking the horsepower to a whole different level, right? Where back in the day it was 800,000 horsepower Holy Trinity of the 10 to 20. Now the whole new the new plateau is kind of set at, well, not even plateau, the whole floor is set at like 1,500 horsepower.
And it's
now.
Crazy because 10 years ago these cars were 800 to 1.3 million. And now just to get into the game, you're over 2 million. They've doubled in price in 10 years.
That is very true.
Insane.
That is. So we're at a $3 million sticker price plus.
Yeah.
We're at 1,500 horsepower plus. Mm-hmm. Bugatti does have a long tenured history, but it was kind of revamped with the Veyron, right? It was, I forget if it was, I remember there was nothing produced for a long while
the
mainstream.
EB110 was
Oh, you're right. I forgot about
late
that.
90s,
How do I forget
which
about
I
that?
think that would be a cool car to add to the collection. That is like the first retro, not first, but that's a pretty retro hypercar. That could be pretty neat. We got to drive one of these days.
I wouldn't mind. I would take.
Those are cool.
I just drove Stradman's Veyron a little while ago, and that thing it kind of changed my perception on those.
Yeah.
I think that's an ugly car, but the performance just significantly got me over the looks on that.
I think the Vitesse and the Super Sport help, but that's
yes,
story for different time.
Yeah, maybe one coming soon. What else? Let's talk about heritage, because we discussed that heritage is important with that. Bugatti, obviously significant heritage in racing. They've been now producing we talked about the EB110, the Veyron,
I think
the Chiron.
that's arguably one of the strongest heritage brands ever. They have been a name widely accepted as the best car manufacturer ever.
What about
for
Koenigsegg?
100 years. Dude, Christian's a mad scientist.
He is.
So I think Koenigsegg is the next Bugatti. Like that's going to be in 100 years from now.
Yep.
That car's going to be insane. They're so cool.
Sure, I agree. He's definitely, especially with the Gemera. We talked about the 3-cylinder, 3 electric drive motor, 1,800. I forget how much horsepower that one is.
Agera RS, that car actually dethroned the Veyron Super Sport and became the world's fastest production car. Yeah. And that alone is a feat in and of itself. Yeah. Christian made a car in 15 years that was the fastest car ever made. And he went at it from a totally different approach than Bugatti did with weight and power. He did as light as possible, aerodynamic, and that alone I think cements Koenigsegg as a huge powerhouse in the car manufacturer.
So is heritage all that important when it comes to determining the Holy Trinity?
I do. I think yes. You're not going to pick a car like the Hennessy Venom F5. That's an amazing car. Yeah. But I don't think Hennessy's been in the game long enough for that to be one of those cars where it's that's going to solidify itself for this decade forever.
Yep. I think that's where him and I keep getting hung up, is on that third vehicle. So we've talked about the Pagani Utopia, which clearly does have the history. I mean, Horacio Pagani worked for Lamborghini. He designed the last model of the Countach that they call a save to the company, and then he went on to do the Zonda, the Huayra, and then now the Utopia.
Look at the Zonda. It's literally, those cars are selling they're changing hands for 6 to 10 million right
crazy.
now for a regular.
Yes.
You can't say that they don't have a name for themselves, because they do. They're amazing cars.
It does have the heritage. The sticker price on the Utopia is only $2 million, where the others are starting at $3 million. At least that's what they said pre all this inflation crap. Who knows what it's at now?
My only gripe with that being in this Holy Trinity is the Chiron came out in 2018, and the Utopia won't hit the ground until 2023 or 4. So
but look at the P1 that came out in 13 or 14. The LaFerrari 14
they all came
15.
out at the same time. They were released on the same day. Geneva 2012 or 13.
Yep.
Geneva Auto Show. Anyways, so that the Utopia, I feel like the Huayra BC is too close to the Bugatti Chiron as far as time frame. But the Huayra came out in 2014, so I guess the Utopia would be. I don't know. That's hard for me to chew on, because I feel like they don't match up time frame wise.
Yes.
But
in my opinion, we all know that there's a seismic shift into the electric industry, right? So after I drove the Rimats, or as a lot of us Americans call it, the Rimac Nevera.
The Rimac?
The Rimac.
Actually, I'm kidding. Not
that thing is like a 2,000 horsepower machine that is 2 seconds faster than the Bugatti 0 to 200 miles an hour. I think it's going to pave the way for a lot of electric hypercars, and it might to some unfortunately, to some fortunately, it might actually end up changing the entire landscape. You know, if you can get a car that's faster, performs better, has drift mode, and it's electric, it's quiet, it can charge and hold a bunch of miles, then it does feel like it has no soul, I'm not gonna lie. Like after I drove it, I'm like, you just don't feel like the rumble of the engine or the soul. But when I slept on it and I started like reminiscing on my memories of drifting it and driving it and going 200 miles an hour in Croatia and then making their news.
I know.
I was all over their national news.
I mean, you can't say that car, when you were drifting, you were literally facing backwards and moving sideways. Yes. You can't say it doesn't have soul. I mean, it's a different type of soul.
You're right. It's probably the future soul of what everybody's gonna be driving, right? So for me, I like to think that they're paving the way, and like that might be the first of the beastly hypercars that are electric that ends up turning everything electric.
There's that new Lotus that's 2,000 horsepower. There's a bunch of up and coming electric powerhouses, the Pininfarina. Yeah. So there could be a wave that could
which is basically a Rimac.
Yeah. But that could be the new, like the next decade's Holy Trinity. They could be all electric.
So you wanted to see, so right now we're talking about the Utopia as that third car. For me, the Chiron and the Jesko are like home runs, like they have to be. And there's consistency across the two in price and horsepower. And the third one is the one that's, again, getting us. By the way, the Utopia sound system was next level. I've never heard a car. Oh, you weren't in there when they were blasting it in Italy? The vast majority of foreign super and hypercars have horrible sound systems, and they've changed the landscape with sound systems on the Utopia. Anyway, that's a conversation for another day. Yeah. What are some other options outside of the Utopia, the Nevera?
So this is another thing that Steve and I get hung up on. Oh. I think the Aston Martin Valkyrie.
I knew it.
The Aston Martin Valkyrie, I have a feeling is going to be my generation's McLaren F1. I think that car is going to appreciate like crazy. I think that it's going to break records for lap times. They're still too new to know for sure. Yeah. But it came out, that car was released so long ago too that it fits in the same time frame as.
I just think the way it's like a race car, it's not street legal. I don't get me wrong. The car looks amazing. I don't disagree with you, but like I sat in it and I almost had a claustrophobic attack. It's like nothing ever. You're sitting in a tub.
So Steve has to get a Spider, is what I'm hearing.
Maybe, yeah.
So you just have the open air. I'm just kidding.
I agree that keeps up, like as far as price point goes, power. It looks crazy. I just don't think it's the same kind of class of vehicle because it's not street legal, because it is an F1 car. Like that is an F1 car that is not meant.
It is, and so is the AMG 1. Unfortunately, it was announced that the AMG 1 will not be street legal in the United States of America. I think that's going to hurt its case. Where like, if that car was able to be show on display similar to the Valkyrie, it could have been the AMG 1, the Valkyrie, and then another. Like, we don't know. That's the cool part. That's why this video is fun.
There's some consistency with it being kind of a well-known manufacturer. Like it's pretty, like you had a Ferrari, you had a Porsche, and then you had a McLaren. The McLaren was probably the odd man out of that time because they had only really built the F1 at that point, right? So,
but in the 90s, it was Mercedes, Porsche, and Ferrari.
Exactly.
So it changes manufacturers.
But it's still common manufacturers, lesser common models is kind of what I'm getting at.
Agreed.
Where Koenigsegg is at that point where they've built enough with they had the Agera and the Regera, so they do have enough built where they're a well-known name. You've mentioned they've been around for a while. To me, even after talking about this and where you and I kind of landed before, was that, in my opinion, maybe you're not there, but I think the third one's the Pagani Utopia.
It's hard for me to say the third one when we don't know what the car is going to produce. Like I need to see lap times. I need to see 0 to 60. I need to hear it. I feel like an element of it has to be breaking records because all of these cars in their own right did set new standards for automotive.
And the Pagani, did I just call it a Pagani?
You sure did.
And the Pagani.
On camera.
We got to stop.
That's why the plate is Pagani. Lawrence, clip it. Amazing.
No, that's not why. The Pagani had significantly less horsepower. It's just under 900, I think. Mm-hmm. And as we mentioned, it's a little bit lower on the price point. So that one does seem like an odd man out, but it's also.
But like, what else would fill that spot? I don't know another car that would fit with those two.
Exactly.
And and that's the same thing. That's what makes it hard. Is the AMG 1 and the Valkyrie are so easy to compare together.
Yeah.
And so is the Chiron and the Jesko. So I think I don't know what that third car is, and that's why I want you guys to comment and let us know what you think the next Holy Trinity is going to be.
Yes.
Because like this generation, these are undeniably it's widely accepted.
What could derail it? Yeah. So we know that McLaren P1 is coming out with a replacement, and I think they may even call it the P1. The way that they're talking, but that wouldn't make sense, right?
No, it's a code name similar to C10. So
codename P1. That's
that's
a good one.
That's a P1 successor. Who knows what it's going to be called?
Sure. And then what else do we know for sure that's coming out?
A lot Ferrari successor. I know for a fact
They will have a successor. Porsche will have a successor to. They had the courage to the 918. They'll have a successor to that.
Yep.
Watch it just end up being literally the exact same.
I mean,
3 of the successors to each one of those 3.
We know that Bugatti's working on a hybrid car that's going to be groundbreaking, earth shattering. Like it's the Chiron successors is going to change the game for sure, undeniably.
Will.
Especially
like
with Mate at the head of the wheel, that car's going to be phenomenal.
Agreed.
But again, that might be the next. Like, who knows when that car hits the ground? That could be 2030s.
Yep.
I don't know.
So for now, I think we're going to stick with our early prediction on what we're going to stick with, and let me know if I'm wrong, Tommy, but it's the Koenigsegg Jesko, it is going to be the Bugatti Chiron and all of its variants, and then it is going to be the Pagani Utopia. That is our early decade look at what the Holy Trinity is going to be. Let us know what you think. Did we get it right? Again, there's no way to know for sure, but I think if we were to take that snapshot right now and say, what would it be if we were mid-decade and this was the vehicles that we had at our disposal? I think that's what it is.
No, it could be the Valkyrie, the AMG 1, and like another track, like the
we got to pick one. We got to pick one.
I know. I think you're right. I'm going to go with yours, but I'm saying if you guys think I'm wrong, let me know.
Let us know what you guys think. Did we get it right? Did we get it wrong? Are we complete idiots?
We could be totally off, too. I love it.
We could. But you know what?
Comment. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, like, comment, subscribe. Thank you!